Hello, welcome again. This is a quick video on how to trim, of trimming and what not to do. I'm Raft and thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Okay, so what we're going to start with is just a little bowl here. You want to check the inside of the bowl or know if it's a vase or anything else and know the inside lay. So therefore you can match up the outside with the inside to get a nice thin pot. Say hi to my dog Nellie. She thinks I'm pretty dumb for doing what I do. Alright, so now we're going to eye it and center it with the eye. There's different things you can get and different things to buy to make this easier, but for the sake of it and what most people do, you just eye it. Now I'm using a needle tool and just lightly going into the clay to center it. And then I readjust it and move it. See, moved it slightly. Do it again. Move it again. And do it again and again and again. So you're just moving it slightly every time to where the clay is off. So if the clay is off center, I'm looking at edge to edge and moving it slightly in the opposite direction until I feel it's centered. And as you can see, it's still off, but it's not as bad. But sometimes you got to understand that the center at the bottom is no different than the center at the top, or is different than the center at the top. Now I'm very lightly putting these wads of clay on the edges. It could mess up thin or fragile lips, rims, whatever. And so you got to be careful. But you want it with enough pressure that the piece doesn't fly off when you're sticking a metal object or wood object into it. Now I'm just cleaning up the outside with a very basic kind of dull rounded trimming tool, and I'm trying to get all the you know unevenness out so it's all even and it doesn't pull the clay and make the clay uneven. Now after I get the initial um, unevenness out, I'm just marking down exactly what I want the shape to mimic the inside shape. And so now I'm using the flat uh, trimming tool. Just see, all I'm doing is taking a little bit off and cleaning that. Now I'm digging into the clay and I'm creating the thickness or digging down. You don't want to dig too deep down, small cuts, and every time it starts to start to interfere or somehow make the trimming difficult, like, because that will curl in on itself and then it will sometimes hit and mix in the clay and create like a weird bump. So I'm always cleaning off the trimmings when they start to interfere or get a little too long. And you see I'm just taking small bits at a time, just creating that shape slowly, but I'm making sure that you're getting full revolutions. I'm not going super fast here. I'm just going at a very steady, even pace. But you don't want to take too much off at a time. If you dig so deep into it, first you can just tear right through it, but second you can create that unevenness too. Um, Here I'm just taking a little bit off, creating the shape slowly. But still, I mean, it's not going to take a long time. It's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes to do, a nice bowl. I'm checking here just to make sure I didn't get too thin because, the bowl was pretty thin to begin with. But it's surprising how thin it is, how much you can still trim off. Um, Another note, you want to trim at certain points. You want it to be wet enough that it's easy to trim into, but you want it to be dry enough that it's just not going to tear essentially when you're using the trim tool. So you want it to come off in nice, even, strands, but still wet enough that you're not getting dust as well. And you'll get the feel of it the more you play with clay, the more you do this. You get to feel when it's right, when it's at that right, little too much to manipulate, but still wet enough that you can attach handles, you can cut into it, and you can clean it up and make it look nice, burnish it at this point, uh, doing different things. So that's the one nice thing about clay is you have different levels of when you can do a bunch of different things. But right now I'm just using that tool to get crisper, cleaner edges. Um, so this right here is to get smaller, tighter, um, more pronounced edges or incisions along the pot, or if there's a small little place where I want it to jut out and have a nice angle there, uh, that creates it. So now I'm just cleaning it up. As you can see, I sped up the video a little bit, so I'm just cleaning it up. Um, and now I'm going to use the metal rib. As you can see, I'm really taking off anything because even a little tiny dried piece of clay can, you know, create a weird indentation or line. So now I'm just burnishing that down, cleaning it up, add my little symbol, and done. So once again, just a different angle, but showing the same thing. I'm using the metal tool, and I'm spinning the wheel and trying to center it, cleaning that until I get it centered. As you can see, even from the sped up version, the bottom is slightly different than the top. Now, sometimes when it dries, if you knock it or do something else, that can knock it off center a little bit, or just bad throwing would most likely be the case of this. I'm not a big fan of bowls, to be honest with you, but that's neither here nor there. So once again, I'm just cleaning up the front and the sides to get it so there's no uneven edges. It's just, clean all the way up, and then I can make my shape. I didn't show you what the inside of this was, but I'm going with the inside shape and echoing it with the outside shape. So now I'm just digging slowly in. You can see actually how thin those pieces are. They're not thick pieces at all. But as I do it more and more, you can see, I'm probably an eighth or a 16th of an inch down, and I've ran that across 4 or 5 times. So I'm just taking a millimeter at a time essentially. But you can see from the top that how uneven that actually is. But when it's laying flat or you're not spinning in a circle, it looks even, and for the most part, it is. Um, but you can tell that it's not completely even. But I'm just taking these tools and I'm doing the best I can with what I got, and I'm echoing the outside to be like the inside. I'm cleaning up the edges. Um, I'm taking those small revolutions, the trimming tools, and creating the shape. Now I'm just cleaning it up with the metal rib once again, adding my little insignia. And now when you do this, you see how I flipped it over there. You can see from the inside I showed you now. The bottom, as you can tell, is a little thicker, but that's okay. Having a thicker bottom isn't always necessarily a bad thing. Look at most of your dishes from manufacturers. The bottom's a lot thicker than you would expect, and sometimes doesn't always the lip or the base doesn't always echo what the top does. So just showing you once again, just over and over again, cleaning up, leveling everything out. Then I'm creating the initial shape I want, so I got an idea of where to trim down, round out, and create the shape. But you can see those quick little things. I'm not taking a lot of clay off at once, but I'm taking a little off at a time. I'm making sure I'm always taking that clay away because those trimmings, like I said, if they get caught, they can create a little bump, and then it throws off your piece all the time, and it can be a pain to get those off. So I'm always taking my trimmings off. I'm always placing them, and not to mention, I want them to run on the floor. Some do, but I don't want them to get on the floor. If you have a catch, trimming is, to me, the only time to use a catch. If you're using a catch for throwing, there's really not much of a point. You're just creating more to clean up. But for trimming, since there's a lot of things on the creating it there is good. Well, I mean, that's pretty much it, guys. It's just the basic learning, doing it over and over again, making sure that you're learning from your mistakes. Always, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that, you can practice this and learn from it and enjoy yourself. Trimming can be a very calming and peaceful thing. Thank you for your time. Any questions, let me know.